On June 6, 1944, on the beaches of Normandy landed 160,000 Allied forces, this largest seaborne invasion in history along this 50-mile stretch of heavily Nazi-fortified French coast became known as D-Day.
In the Navy for 2.5 years, discharged as Seaman First Class, enlisted in the Navy as a senior in 1944, February.
I enlisted in December of 43. I was still 16 years old. I had to have my mother sign a letter and then I had to have a copy of my father's death certificate. Activated me after my 17th birthday.
I still remember sitting on the train in Denville Station the morning I went away, and my mother standing on the platform as the train pulled out. It's like yesterday. I can remember that. And after that, things were a blur because we went into New York City. We were sworn in New York and got on a train and went to Sampson, New York in February. Overnight, we got off the train in Sampson, New York, and it was about 10 below zero.
Cold, a lot of snow.
Boy, oh boy. It was only 6 weeks, right? 6 weeks? 5 weeks.
5 weeks, and then we trained out in the snow with a wooden rifle.
It was cold, yeah, it was cold.
Yeah.
It was cold.
They had about a 15 or 20 inch tower in the building there where they had an indoor swimming pool. They taught us how to jump off of that with a May West life preserver so you didn't break your neck.
Yeah.
And we shot 3 shots out of a .22 rifle. We spent a week in the mess hall peeling potatoes. And
I never did that.
I did.
You must have been, you weren't behaving now. No, yeah, you know, all they were looking for were bodies, right?
That's all.
I mean.
So we went back to the barracks. About 2 days later, an officer showed up. He said, everybody lash up your gear, be down in front in an hour. There's going to be a truck pick you up and take you to the railroad station. So we lashed up all our gear. We went down in the snow and stood there. The truck came and picked us up, and they took us by train down to New York City, and they marched us up to Pier 92. Queen Mary was tied up to Pier 90. We slept on springs in Pier 92. We didn't unlash our gear and take our mattresses out, but they next morning they herded us all in the parking lot next door, and they gave us a gas mask, a steel helmet, and first aid kit, I guess it was. Oh no, the Salvation Army gave us this first aid kit. And then they marched us all over and loaded us on the Queen Mary, and that was Easter Sunday, 1944.
I got 14 days, and I went back, and I was assigned to Pier 92, which was a base, believe it or not. And I was going home. It was like I was going home every weekend. And I went home this weekend, and on a Friday night, and I would come back on Monday morning. And I went home, and I left Sunday morning. I left my half of my uniform there and everything. Anyway, I got to Pier 92, and like Al said, they said, pack your gear, and handed me a gas mask and said, get in line. And we marched 2 blocks down the road and I went to the Queen Mary. That was it. And I never got home again for a year.
Queen Mary carried 15,000 troops.
I was going to ask that.
Yeah, it was.
They had 2 P-47 Thunderbolts lashed on the main deck in front of the wheelhouse. And that went up through the North Atlantic. And it didn't go in a convoy because it was too fast. It made about 37 knots. But it changed course about every 8 minutes, so a submarine couldn't plot a course to fire a torpedo at it. And we took 6.5 days to go to Rosny, Scotland from New York.
We were below the waterline. We had to be. And you get in line in the morning to eat, and as soon as you got your food, you got back in line for the next meal, which was 8 hours later.
It took you half a day to get to the head of the line.
Yeah,
Oh, boy.
It wasn't nice. We slept about 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 guys in closet, 4 bunks high, and as I say, it was below the water line. It had to be.
14,000 of those guys were seasick.
And tied up to the dock in Scotland were, at this time, we didn't know what they were 4 LSTs. And, we're looking at each other, what are they? And little did I know that I was going to spend a year on one of them, And they did. We got off and we lived in Quonset huts until we got assigned to the ship, and it was cold there too. And that was in April, right? That's how we got over there. A week or so before we got on. Well, we kind of had an idea where we were going, but no, we started down the coast. We stopped in Belfast, and we were on our way down to Portland, Weymouth, where we were going to load up for the invasion.
Belfast over to Swansea, Wales.
Yeah, I don't think we knew there was going to be an invasion. We didn't know what day. Incidentally, it was supposed to be the 5th of June, but the weather was so horrible, and
started out on the 4th.
The surf was so rough that they couldn't. They posted a day. But I don't know exactly when we knew it was going to be, but we knew it was coming. I mean, my God, if you had any sense, you could see, how everything that was coming there, all the equipment and the troops and everything.
I think when we started loading up the army,
Right, we knew we were going somewhere. I was quartermaster striker. Now, a quartermaster in the Navy is on the bridge. We wheel watches and chart courses and that type of thing. But I was a striker, which means I was an apprentice. I was learning, and that's where they assigned me, which I was glad. Yeah, so that's what I was. I stood wheel watches. To put it very bluntly in layman's terms, I steered the ship with a huge wheel about this big in those days, just like a wheel you would see on a river cruiser or something. And I stood wheel watches, as they called it.
And the 347 had come from
Anzio and Italy, and they had seen the worst of the Italian invasion and everything. And they were a veteran crew and a veteran ship. They had really been around, and they knew what it was all about.
So how many of the veterans from Anzio remained on the LST?
Just about most of them. We fit right in, and they were all business. And it wasn't a strict Navy type of an operation. I mean, it was the amphibs, and we didn't have to put on undress blues at 4 o'clock. We didn't have to wear a special uniform in the morning. We got up, we knew what we had to do. We went to muster, and particularly when we got into the battles, we just did our job. It was not wasn't a really strict type of an operation. Very, very competent. These guys knew what they were doing.
They all tried to teach you what you needed to do.
Yeah, right. They were very good.
All those LSDs that we were distributed on up there, they were in North Africa, they were in Sicily, and they were in Anzio. They sailed over from the United States with a LCT piggyback. They carried an LCT piggyback on the main deck. And then when they got over there, they pumped the tanks out on one side of the LST and filled the other tanks on the other side with water, and so they'd tip sideways and they'd slide them off into the ocean. But they were piggybacked over there, all the LCTs. And then after they got finished in the Mediterranean, they sent them up for the Normandy invasion to Scotland to be refitted. They had 3-inch 50s on the fantail, big gun. They took them all off and they put extra 40 and 20 millimeter anti-aircraft guns on there. That's primarily what we were put on there for.
I was a talker on the bow 40. There was a 40 millimeter on the bow, and I relayed.
Were you on a phone up there?
Yeah, the orders from the bridge to the gun, all the way from the stern to the bow on GQ, the whole length of the ship, because cruise quarters was in the stern, and the bow 40 obviously was on the bow. So I had to go all the way to get to my station.
How long would that take?
Not long. When that one bomb dropped, I'll tell you, it didn't take me long.
You moved.
I got there in a hurry. A couple days before the invasion, when we were tied up in the harbor, and it was an air raid, but they also dropped mines.
The only time they came out was at night.
Yeah,
and that's the one we shot down was right in the evening, just before dark, off Omaha Beach. it was gonna bomb the Texas, the battleship Texas.
And they would be loners. You wouldn't see a whole bunch
No.
of, you know.
No, they didn't have much Air
There
Force
wasn't
left.
anything left.
They were all painted with black and white stripes on the inward side of the wings on each side and around the fuselage up near the tail. They were painted so you could identify them. You didn't shoot down American
We almost
planes.
shot one of ours. I mean, you're 110 guys. You're together. You know what do you do?
Boats 300 feet long, 50 feet wide.
Yeah.
They carry 20 Sherman tanks in the tank
Right.
deck, and then there was an elevator right inside the bow doors, and they could raise things up to the main deck, and they put half tracks up there,
Yeah.
jeeps, small artillery, and ambulances and command cars, and you take quite a load. And then
Yeah, we had
some LSDs had 2 LCVPs, some had 6. We had 6.
So did we.
Did you have 6?
Yeah, we had
And LCVP is what?
Higgins boat
The
landing.
little boat.
Landing boat?
Yeah, the little boat when you see the pictures of infantry coming in and yeah.
They carry about 35 fully equipped infantry,
Yeah.
and maybe a jeep a jeep or 35 fully equipped infantry. And you had a 3-man crew, a coxswain, a motor machinist, and a ramp operator.
Yeah. Well, we didn't have infantry. What we did is, I was brought up before, we had 20 Sherman tanks. And we were supposed to unload these tanks onto rhino barges, they called them, that were manned by,
Combat engineers.
well, yeah.
They had 2 big outboard motors on them.
Yeah,
2
right.
big Johnson, long
And
ship.
the water was so rough. We weren't on the beach. And we were just outside the 88 fire, and we were unloading onto these barges. And a couple of those tanks just went right straight down. They never got on the barge.
They had 5-man crews.
They never had a chance. They just went to the bottom. I mean, here's a 17-year-old kid, you know, and there was
A lot of people drowned.
bodies, yeah, there were a lot of bodies in the water. And we had a hospital. We had 2 doctors and a couple of corpsmen on board the ship. And all during the night, the table in the mess hall was the operating table. Working on these guys all night. It was a lot of guys. Oh yeah, we were a designated hospital.
And they
ship.
used yours for emergency hospital.
Yeah, right. That's what it was. Yeah, and unfortunately we ended up with quite a few that didn't make it.
We had a German, he was younger than I was.
Oh
Just a
God,
kid.
they were young.
He had 1 leg missing and a part of an arm. He had 1 good arm left. And the corpsman tried to give him a drink of water and he knocked it out of his hands. He didn't want no help from the enemy.
Wow.
Oh yeah, they were young. We brought prisoners back. This is after D-Day. Kids were 2 or 3 years younger than we
They
were.
were just 15-year-old kids and they were nasty little guys.
Yeah, they were nice. We also brought back part of the Screaming Eagles, the paratroopers that went in before the invasion. Those guys. You remember seeing the picture of the parachute hanging on the church steeple? That boat.
St. Maria Glise.
Yeah, they were Screaming Eagles.
They didn't want the LSDs in there because when you landed on the beach, on that beach with an LSD, you were there for 12 hours.
Yeah, we couldn't get off.
Because you went in with the
That
tide.
when
Yeah,
the
you
tide
went with
was
the tide,
halfway
come out
out,
with
when
the
it was
tide.
going out, and beach, and then you had to wait for high tide to get back off again.
That's what happened to us on Sword
Had
Beach.
a stern anchor that you dropped when you went in there, with a great big giant electrical winch on the back, and you drop that anchor with a heavy cable on it before you hit the beach. All that cable and that'd be hooked in the bottom of the sea out there. And then when you got high tide, then you use that to help pull yourself off the
Yeah,
beach.
right.
And we got in there about 8 o'clock in the morning. And a lot of the guys that they dropped the ramp there was hard to find a place because everything that went in ahead of us was wrecked. And you couldn't find a place to get in to the beach to drop your men off. And we finally did. And we were one of the few boats that ever got back off that beach at that time in the morning.
Yeah.
And some of them guys got shot as soon as they stepped off the ramp. But around 11 o'clock, 10:30, 11 o'clock, there were nobody could move on that beach. Anything moved got shot. But around 11 o'clock, 10:30, 11 o'clock, there were 6 P-38s. On the west end of the beach, we were assigned to the Foxy Green section of Omaha Beach. And up on top of the cliff there were 6 P-38 Lightnings were circling around shelling something, firing on something on the ground. And whatever they hit, all of a sudden there was a gigantic explosion called boom. Beautiful, but deadly. They must have hit a big magazine or trucks carrying ammunition up to the troops, the German troops, because about 11 o'clock, that's when things, the firing started to lighten up, and guys could start to move up on the beach further. You know, that was just one group.
One group.
There were a lot. The sky was full of planes.
Yeah.
All and the channel was, you could have walked across the channel just about.
With all the boats.
Any kind of boat you could think of. We had the capital ships assigned to Omaha Beach was the heavy cruiser of the United States cruiser Augusta. That was the flagship. That had Admiral Stark on it. We got a commendation from Admiral Stark for what we did in the invasion, and everybody got moved up a rank. I went from second class seaman to first class seaman. Then they had the battleship Texas and the battleship Arkansas, and they had the heavy cruiser Quincy. That was working between Omaha and Utah Beach. And then there were 2 French cruisers assigned there. They escaped from France and went to North Africa when the Germans invaded. So they had 9 6-inch guns. They had 2 turrets forward with 3 guns in each turret, and 1 turret in the rear. And I guess all the bad guys were in front of us because we were between them and the beach. And every time they got behind us, they let go a full broadside with those 9 guns. And boy, took your helmet right off your head. And all that burnt cordite coming down over you, smoke and all that burnt powder coming down over you. Oh yeah.
Never heard about that.
But I can't hear it today because you couldn't hear for 3 hours after they let a full broadside go over your head. You know, blam. They were shooting at something right in front of us.
We didn't leave until, well, we went in at what, 6, what, HR was what?
No, it was 6:30.
We went in, we were a half hour after HR. And we left around 8 o'clock that night. We were there, you know, but, because we, as I said, we had a medical unit on board, a couple of doctors.
The only LSD that landed on Omaha Beach on D-Day was the LSD-6. Landed about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And Bob Wilkins went in the Navy with us and went to boot camp with us. He was on the LSD-6. And who also was on the LSD-6 was Dr. Bertha from Wharton. Dr. Bertha was a young surgeon. They went in there with a hospital unit, a hospital tent unit that they were going to set up on the beach up there. And we were behind them for backup, and man, they were dropping mortar shells around that LSD-6 like popcorn. They were going off, but they never hit them with a single one. And they got that set up about 6 o'clock at night up there on the hill. And that Dr. Bertha could tell you a lot of horrors, a lot of bad memories.
Yeah, but it's, and as I've said many, many times, and you've heard me say this, I didn't appreciate at the time what it was. I'm more frightened talking about it now than when I was there. I don't know about you, because I don't think I appreciated it. I thought we were playing, I didn't think, you know, but it was like we're playing games. It
Bothers me now more than it did,
Absolutely,
because
me
when
too.
I was working and raising a family, I had my mind on too many other different things. Didn't have time to think about it.
Right.
Now you have time to think,
right,
Yeah.
exactly.
and you wonder, why am I still here?
Courageous thing that both you did. And the fact that you're here at 89 years old, 89,
Yeah, he's
and able to talk about it is fantastic.
We left on the 4th, and they turned us back, and they wouldn't let us in Port of Weymouth Harbor. They made us anchor out in the bay because they didn't want to open the submarine nets and a chance of a German submarine sneaking in under one of those boats and get into harbor. So they made us anchor out. They left the Limey Corvette there to protect us against the submarine attack. We got a message from shore with the light that we had 1st Army Combat Engineers on our boat, and they had mail in there that they hadn't gotten their mail in a long time. So the captain, the water was really rough, and the captain says, too dangerous to go in there for that mail. He says, do I have any volunteers? So I volunteered along with a couple other guys, and we went in. We had to take a signalman with us because he had his code book. So we got to the break in the breakwater where the submarine net was, on each end, on each side of it, they had a machine gun nest, Limeys in a machine gun nest. And they, once they realized there was something out there, they questioned you with the light, and that signalman had to have the right code answer, or they'd chop you up with a machine gun. If you give them the wrong answer, you got it. Limeys didn't waste any time. If things weren't right, they straightened them out right away. Get the mail and bring it back to those guys, and well, it's like 20 foot from the water when it's smooth to the main deck, and 1 minute we were up by the main deck, next minute we're down 20 feet. That's how the waves were going.
Oh yeah,
They were thrown over heaving lines that we were tying the mail bags on. Good if you got your thing wrapped around your arm and that boat went down, you'd liable to lose your arm. But those guys, probably the last letter a lot of them ever read.
So we went up to London and picked up a British armored unit, I guess, half infantry and half armored, and loaded them. And we went to this beach called Sword Beach, which was, there were 5 beaches. There was Omaha, Utah, Sword,
Juneau and
Juneau.
Gold.
Sword Beach was the last one west.
Yeah.
West. And we went in with 6 other LSTs into the beach, you know, 7 abreast. We had barrage balloons on, which we carried all the time. And, you know, this was the June 15th, which was 2 weeks after D-Day. And, you know, it was nice and quiet. There was nobody there. It was an empty, wide beach and nobody around. And I was up in the wheelhouse, and we were, you know, just whatever, talking, whatever we were doing as they were unloading. I had nothing to do with unloading, you know. And they were unloading. All of a sudden, we hear this whistle, and the ship next to us gets direct hit from a 155 howitzer that was 20 miles inland on a railroad, which had taken aim at the barrage balloons. So, you know, right away, GQ rings, and we all took for cover, and pretty soon another one come in, and another one. To make a very long story short, they kept it coming, and they hit a couple other ships, and we got one near miss on our port side. And then the captain orders 80 of us off the ship. There's only 100 guys on the ship, so he ordered 80 of us off the ship to abandon ship. So, and we were up high and dry. You know, we had gone in, you could walk around the ship. We were high and dry. We couldn't go anywhere. So we went off, and this thing is still coming. So we dug a big hole, like a foxhole, if you want to. And we crawled into that thing, and we laid there for 8 hours while this damn gun was firing away. One came close, and the captain, Stewart, who was the only African American on the ship, and he was a great guy. He got a little bit of and I don't think he ever put in a claim or anything for it, but he got like a little nick on the top of his head. But that's as close as it came. But it was a little hairy for a while. And when darkness came, obviously, it ceased. And the captain ordered all of us back, and we had to go back, and he sent in the LCVPs to pick us up. We went out, and we got on. We had to climb up the cargo nets to get up onto the ship. And by that time, everybody in the crew, if you dropped a quarter, everybody jumped 10 feet in the air. And we had all the cables on our davit on the LCVPs were cut. And I didn't realize after reading the ship's log that there was damage in one on the port side somewhere. Anyway, so and according to the ship's log, we were towed back. We went back and we went into dry dock in Plymouth. We all got leave.
Point Du Hoc, that's where the Army Rangers scaled those cliffs to get up found those telephone poles up. That was between Omaha and Utah. They were shell craters from the battleship Texas, which had 14-inch guns, and they made them big holes up there. Well, they were providing cover for everybody, because they thought that gun they had up there, those guns, they could fire on Omaha or Utah. They could fire both ways because they were in the middle, and they wanted to get them out of there. That's why a lot of those Rangers were lost in that, climbing those cliffs.
Yeah.
But yeah, but LST-6 was the only LST that landed that day on. They all rest of them unloaded on rhino barges. There was a lot of bodies on that beach. With a bad situation to be in. Over there, you wish they weren't there, but now I'm glad I was there to see what happened here.